1st April, merchants will have to pay charges for certain UPI transactions above rupees 2000. Will customers be impacted? Let's find out. Welcome to TUI Wallet Talks. Millions of people use UPI and digital payments are becoming a way of life. Recently, there was this whole fear that customers will have to pay charges for transactions made above rupees 2000 under certain conditions. To understand what the latest circular means on interoperability and merchant charges, we have with us Jayakrishan G. He's partner financial services consulting at Grant Thornton Bharat, and he's going to tell us whether customers have any cause for worry. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
Hi. So my first question to you is that there is this whole alphabet soup out there. What does interoperability mean? What does PPI mean? How do we break it down in terms of the common person out there?
Right. So interoperability for a customer is nothing new. We've been now in a way, most of the payment instruments that we use in our daily life are interoperable. If you relate back to how cards have come in as a payment instrument, you might be using a Visa card or issued by ICICI. You could as well, use it in any point of sales. The point of sale could be from HDFC, SBI. So that's basically interoperability, irrespective of the instrument that you hold. The issuer of the instrument could be anyone. Right. But the acquirer, the person who processed the payment, when the UPI had started, perhaps if you were using Google Pay, you could only pay to another Google Pay customer. You couldn't pay to a Paytm customer, right? You couldn't pay to a Phone Pay customer. Now that's possible. You could pay as a Google Pay customer, you could pay to a Phone Pay customer. Everyone, your recipient need not have the same UPI app. They can have different apps. That's basically interoperability means.
Okay, but how does this whole system work? I load my wallet from money from my bank account. I make a payment, whether to now with this whole PPI thing coming in, I make it to another bank account or I make it to another wallet. But how does the backend system work out there?
Yeah, so we should understand UPI is not holding any money at any point in time. It's equated to rails. We call it UPI rails, right? It's just a rail that you can make anything transport through that rail. What UPI essentially does is it connects the sender's bank account to the receiver's bank account, and it just processes batches of instructions, sending instructions and receiving instructions. So essentially, the connect is between two bank accounts when UPI is in play. Right. Therefore, it doesn't matter which UPI app do you use to connect to the NPCI rail, because NPCI rail is common for all bank accounts, right? All banks which are in place. And that's how the interoperability is facilitated by NPCI, because the rail that is connecting all banks in India is the same rail. Right. You might be using a different app to get to that rail. It doesn't matter. Because irrespective of whichever app you use, Paytm, Phone Pay, Google Pay, everyone comes to the same rail, and then you are able to switch transactions between different apps. That's how it works. Only difference is though, when you use a PPI, this is a prepaid instrument. There is a loading of money that happens when there is a PPI in play. If a PPI replaces a bank account in the transaction, there is a slight difference. The difference is that instead of connecting the common rail connecting to a bank account, the common rail will now connect to a PPI. But the process remains the same. It's just that the connecting point for the UPI rail, the NPCI rail, is now not a bank account. It is a PPI account. But the PPI is already connected to this common rail. Therefore, the interoperability is seamless in that case as well.
No. So what I want to understand from you is that what is this latest NPCI circular all about? What are these merchant charges that are going to come about for transactions above rupees 2000?
I would take an example of how, again, credit card industry operates, right? The card industry operates through point of sales, terminals. There is a payment gateway in play. Right. This infrastructure has a certain element of actual cost involved. Right from recognizing the instrument at a point of sale to sending these instructions through a IT network to servers recognizing them. There is a switching part involved in. So there are technical aspects that involves several servers, several tech infrastructure, and also physical security measures. This is all managed by a number of intermediaries who are either payment service providers on the issuer side or on the acquirer side, or the other reconciliation sort of service providers who are in the middle. And all of this comes at a real cost. But we always had around 1.5 to in some cases, like premium cards like American Express used to even charge more than 2.5% of the transaction to the merchant. The dynamics and the process and the cost structure is very much same when it comes to UPI also, except the fact that we don't need a physical receiving instrument. We don't need a physical POS terminal. QR codes have made that cost redundant. So the receive side cost dynamics have changed substantially. There is no physical terminals needed. We don't need a device that is needed. So the acceptance mechanism has substantially changed. The technology has improved. But in the middle and the back office, wherein the sending instructions or receiving instructions are processed, the reconciliations are taken care in case if there is any errors that are to be supported. So those cost structures have remained pretty much out there, right? Those are real cost structures.
Yes.
For a long time, since UPI was introduced as part of Digital India initiative, and it's also a government-sponsored program to that extent, as part of our Honorable Prime Minister's vision to move to a digital economy. A lot of this cost, almost all of them, are subsidized by NPCI when they provided this tech infrastructure for the banks and others to use.
Right.
In other words, all these costs are today borne by the government, and they are subsidized and they're given to the customers. But the other intermediaries, other players like banks who are for-profit institutions who are accountable for their investors' money that is going into this. There is no revenue model UPI provided for them. There is no direct revenue model except the customer stickiness and perhaps to some extent data of spend.
Yes.
There's no direct revenue model UPI is provided for anyone for that matter. Not to the mobile apps like Google Pay or Phone Pay, not for the banks who are providing UPI in their thing. Which is a cause of concern because the cost for them is also real. So at some point, one need to think about who is going to bear this cost. The first effort in that direction is taken by NPCI, while they have added PPI to that UPI rail. They said, okay, at least for PPI, let's now charge the interoperability charges, which are so far borne by the banks and the NPCI. Now, that is one aspect of it. Yes, there is a charge for 2,000 above rupees transaction on 0.1%, but the charge is in the hands of merchants. It is not in the hands of customer, which is very much like how earlier the credit cards and debit cards used to get charged in the hands of the merchants, right? But if you recollect, the petrol bunks and other places where the customers, they started charging it back to the customers. Yes. Government came up with an initiative saying that we'll refund, don't charge it back to the customer. In case if you're charging to the customer, then we'll refund directly back to the customer. So there will always be those government interventions if a particular type of merchants decides to pass it back to the customer. That could be a worry, because while in principle we can say the charge is always under the merchant, but merchant can always take a stand saying that because it costs me, I'm going to add up that to your invoice, right? That's an indirect way of passing it back to the customer. But for now, the charge is in the merchant's hands. It is not on the customer hands, and it is only for those transactions where a PPI is involved, not for those transactions where you and I are already, connecting two bank accounts and transferring between bank accounts. To sum it up, the transactions that are happening today in UPI will continue as it is. There is no charge whatsoever going to get attracted for those transactions, so no need to worry on that front. Right. The new transactions that are being facilitated through PPI, if you are using a Paytm payment wallet, or you're using any other prepaid payment wallet, and you're using that instead of the bank account to make a UPI transaction, there will be a charge, but not in the hands of you as a customer, but in the hands of merchant, which already there, even if you're not using UPI, you're using any other form of PPI payment, there is already a charge that either your mobile app is subsidizing or the merchant is paying you back. So there's nothing new about that.
Okay, so you're saying that as of now, customers need not worry, but there is a realistic possibility that this charge may be passed on in the coming maybe months, years, but once it does, the government is likely to intervene the way it has done in the past.
Yes, cost must be passed on after some point in time. Because the investment window, in my view, as far as UPI is concerned, is already over. It is adopted very well. I think it's only time that we recognize this service need to be paid a nominal fee. That cost is a reality. It will come in eventually, but not anytime soon. I don't think that's going to happen at least for this year, this financial year that is coming up. So it might take a year plus or so, but the cost will anyway be there.